I hear the Spirit laying these words on my heart for you tonight. And before I say anything else, I want you to understand something about this specific moment. You did not stumble here. Something brought you here. Not by accident, not by the noise of a feed or a recommendation. Something quiet and purposeful. Something that has been working in the background of your life through every season that made no sense. Made sure that tonight, at this specific hour, these specific words would reach you. So wherever you are right now, let the room be what it is. If the night outside is heavy, let it be heavy, because what is about to unfold in this message was placed here for exactly the person you are in this exact moment. Here is what I want to give you tonight, chosen one. I want to show you what the wilderness that you have been walking through was actually doing inside of you. I want to decode the signs that your body and spirit have been sending you, the ones you may have dismissed as stress or confusion. I want to give you the truth about what readiness actually means and why the feeling of it was never the point. And I want to show you the specific frequency that God designed you to operate from and what it looks like to finally step into it. Everything I share with you in the next 25 minutes is freely given. But if at any point your spirit tells you there is something specific and more that you need, the description below and the pinned comment carry what you are looking for. Only go there if you feel genuinely led. Now, one thing before we begin, stay with me through all of this, through every part of it, because what I save for the final section is the piece that makes everything else land completely. By the time we reach the end, you will know exactly what you were built for. You will understand why the waiting had to be exactly as long as it was. And you will have a clear picture of what the first step of what comes next looks like. All of it is here. Stay. The reason God waited until tonight to say this specifically tonight is where we begin. Before I show you the revelation, I need to do something first. I need to sit with you inside the season you have been in. Not rush past it, not spiritualize it before it has been honored. Sit in it. You have been waiting for a long time, not just a few rough months. You have been in a season where the waiting got into the bones, the kind of waiting where at some point you stopped telling people what you were believing for because the looks got exhausting. Because explaining a faith that you feel from the inside to someone who has never felt it from the inside is its own kind of loneliness. And so you learn to carry it quietly. The prayers got shorter, not because you stopped believing, the believing was more stubborn than that, but because you ran out of words. The hope did not disappear. It just learned to stay further from the surface, because the surface had absorbed too many disappointments to keep putting fresh hope there. And there were moments, in the quiet, where a question would arrive that you did not say out loud. Am I forgotten? Is this actually going anywhere? Was I wrong about all of this? I see that. And tonight I want you to know that God has seen every single moment of it too. There was a woman in ancient history named Esther. She was placed in a palace not by her own plan, not by her own ambition, but through a series of circumstances she did not choose. For a period of time she was simply there, hidden, quiet, positioned in a place that made no immediate sense relative to what her life was supposed to be about. And then, one day, the man who loved her most looked at her and said, "Who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this? For such a time as this." In the original Hebrew language, there is a word for what Esther's moment was. The word is moed. It does not translate perfectly into English, but its meaning is this: a divine, appointed time, a moment that was set and sealed before the person knew they would need it. Not a comfortable moment, not an easy moment, a moment that was made specifically, intentionally constructed for one specific person to step into. Your waiting has had a mode on it all along. The season you have been in was not abandonment. It was not God being silent. It was not faith leading nowhere. It was construction. Something was being assembled in you during that entire stretch of quiet that could not be rushed, could not be faked, and could not have been produced any other way. Let me show you what was being formed, because I think when you see it clearly, the silence will finally make sense. You may have noticed recently that your emotional weather has become unpredictable in a specific kind of way. Not chaotic, just unpredictable. One moment, there is a peace that has no rational explanation. The next, a wave of sadness arrives from somewhere you cannot trace. Then, something close to hope, and then, it cycles again. Not because something external triggered it, but from somewhere inside you, somewhere you cannot put your finger on. That is not anxiety. That is your spirit processing the end of a season. Each of those waves is a frequency shift happening in a part of you that is further along in the transition than your visible life has caught up to yet. And you have probably noticed that certain environments that used to feel normal now feel draining in a way they did not before. Conversations that you used to be able to sit in for hours now exhaust you within minutes. Places and dynamics that once felt compatible now feel almost impossible to inhabit for any length of time. Not because those situations have become objectively worse, but because you have moved, and the environment around you has not moved with you. Your threshold has shifted. And that is not isolation. That is the language of someone whose frequency has outgrown the container. There is a third sign in this category. Your clarity has been sharpening in a way that is hard to explain. A specific kind of knowing intuition that arrives before the evidence. A sense of what is coming before it becomes visible. An ability to read situations and people with a precision that sometimes surprises you. It feels almost unfair, as if someone turned up a dial you did not ask to have turned up. Here is the reframe for that. Your discernment sharpened because you spent an extended season navigating by discernment alone. When the visible evidence was not there, the internal compass had to compensate. You trained it through the hardship without knowing that was what you were doing. Not because you failed. Not because he forgot you. Not because the promise was too small for you. Not because you were not enough to receive it. None of those. The wilderness lasted because what it was building in you had a specific depth, a specific weight, a specific shape, and it could not be finished one day sooner than it was. There is a work that only wilderness does. It strips away what is false about your identity, the borrowed versions of yourself, the performed selves, and what falls away in the process was never really you to begin with. Wilderness develops a trust in something larger than what the eyes can confirm, and it creates a specific capacity, not a generic strength, but the exact right capacity for what the next season requires, sized to the assignment, not just to the survival. There is something in your spirit right now that has been wondering whether the waiting was preparation or punishment. I want to say it plainly. It was preparation. And the preparation is nearly complete. Stay with me. Because what I am about to show you next, the signs that are manifesting in your daily life right now, will show you exactly why I can say that. Let me show you the evidence that the formation is coming to completion. We named 3 things just now: the emotional weather shifting, the old environments becoming incompatible, the clarity and intuition sharpening without effort. But there are 2 more signs I need to show you, and when all 5 come into view together, something changes. The 4th sign is happening while you sleep. You are waking up in the night, not because of a sound, not because of a worry running through your mind. You are waking at a specific hour, somewhere in that window between 3 and 4 in the morning, and staying awake in the quiet. Not restless, not anxious, just awake, alert, in a way that does not feel like your choice. In ancient spiritual tradition, this hour was known as the third watch, the hour of transition, the moment when the night is at its deepest, just before it begins to turn toward light. The body and spirit register threshold changes before the conscious mind catches up to them. What is happening in that waking is not insomnia. It is your spirit standing at attention at the edge of something. The 5th sign is the repetition. You have been noticing the same word, the same phrase, the same theme appearing through sources that have nothing to do with each other. A message from one place and a conversation from a completely separate place. A passage you opened by chance and a song that was already playing before you entered the room. Something that keeps returning through doors that should have no connection to each other. Not once, not twice. Persistently, consistently, across time. That is not coincidence. That is divine repetition. The same truth being underlined through unrelated sources because something wants you to be absolutely certain before you step forward. Now here is what changes everything about these 5 signs. They do not happen separately in isolation. They happen in cluster, and the cluster is the signal. When you are tired in a way that is not physical exhaustion, when your old environment feels incompatible, when clarity arrives before evidence does, when sleep breaks at a threshold hour, and when the same message keeps appearing through channels that should not be connected, that is not a season of confusion. That is what activation looks like from the inside. God does not announce a new season one single time and move on. He announces it in multiple frequencies, through multiple forms, across multiple channels, until the message cannot be ignored. And what you have been experiencing is not random and unrelated symptoms. It is a layered announcement being made over your life. There is a language God uses to say that something is about to change. And it has 3 forms. The first form is the language of subtraction. Things that used to be central to your life are quietly stepping back. Relationships that once felt permanent are creating natural distance. Desires you used to carry have faded without drama. Versions of yourself that you used to perform have become harder and harder to inhabit. This is not loss, this is vocabulary. God is clearing the sentence of your life to make room for what He is about to write. The second form is the language of sensation. What you feel in your spirit and in your body that has no rational explanation available to give it. The restlessness that is different from anxiety. The hunger that is different from ambition. The reaching forward sensation, some part of you extending towards something unnamed and real. That sensation is not imagination running ahead of itself. It is the future, making itself felt before it becomes visible. The third form is the language of synchronicity. The Moed echo, the same truth, appearing through the texture of daily life in ways that could not have been coordinated by any human timing. When the synchronicities start compressing, when the repetitions begin layering over each other, that is the announcement in full volume. You have been receiving all 3 forms of this announcement. And if these words are landing in your spirit right now, there is a community of people walking this same path. Stay connected through the button below, because there are more words being prepared for every season you walk into. Before I take you into the deepest revelation, the one that assembles everything we have spoken about into a single clear picture, let me pause for just a moment. There is a tool. I am going to come back to it in full detail later in this message, but I want to place it in your awareness now, because it speaks directly to what we have been discussing. It is called the Genius Song. It works with the specific frequency your brain was designed to operate from, a frequency that has been suppressed not by spiritual failure, but by the accumulated weight of modern life. 7 minutes a day, through headphones. I will come back to the full explanation shortly. For now, simply know that it exists, and that the link to explore it is in the description and the pinned comment below, only if you feel genuinely led. Right now, I want to take you into what comes next, because the revelation that follows is the one that makes all of this click into place. Revelation 1 showed you what the wilderness was building. Revelation 2 decoded the signs telling you the building is nearly complete. This one shows you what both of those were calibrating inside you. And it starts with a truth that most people in long seasons never quite receive. Readiness is not a feeling. You will not wake up one morning and feel ready. That feeling will not announce itself from the inside and give you permission to step forward. Because readiness is not generated internally. Readiness is declared externally, It is spoken over a person who has been prepared without fully knowing they were being prepared. And that declaration is what tonight is carrying for you. But first, I want to show you something that science has been quietly documenting for a long time, something that connects directly to everything we have been talking about. In documented research across leading institutions, including MIT and Princeton and several other university programs, researchers have spent decades studying what happens in the human brain during its highest states of function. There is a frequency called gamma that peer-reviewed work has consistently documented as the peak operating state of the human mind. When the brain moves into gamma, something different becomes available. A clarity that does not require effort. A connection between ideas that feels almost effortless. An intuitive sharpness, a creativity that does not fight itself, and a sense of being fully present and fully alive at the same time. Researchers across multiple institutions describe it as the genius state, the frequency the human mind was built to operate from. Children are born with this frequency fully active. Watch a young child, the way they learn without resistance, the way they ask questions without fear of looking foolish, the way they feel connected to everything around them without trying. That is gamma in its natural state. That is the original design. But something happens around the age of 7. Researchers call it the decline effect. The accumulated weight of a system built around compliance, a culture built around productivity, a world that runs on stress management, all of it begins to suppress the gamma frequency. Not all at once. Gradually, year by year, the person who used to learn anything and feel everything and know things before they could explain why finds that connection getting harder to access, more effort required, less effortless flow. This is not a spiritual failure. This is not evidence that something went wrong with you. It is a biological response to an environment that was never designed to preserve your genius. And here is why this matters for you tonight, chosen one. The calling you have felt since childhood, the sense that you were made for something larger than what your current circumstances could contain that was not imagination. That was the gamma frequency recognizing its assignment. And the reason it has felt harder to access as life got heavier is not because the frequency left, it is because the frequency got buried, and buried is not gone. Now, I want to be honest with you about something, because there is a pattern that blocks most chosen ones from stepping into what has already been declared over them. And it is not external opposition. It is not lack of opportunity. It is a groove. Years of hoping and not seeing. Years of believing and waiting. Years of prayers going out and silence coming back. Those years carve a groove into the nervous system, a default pathway that fires before you even consciously decide to fire it. It sounds like, this probably will not work for me. It sounds like, every time I get close, something stops it. It sounds like, maybe the calling was for someone else, and I simply mistook it as mine. That is not cynicism, that is a wound. And the difference between those two things matters enormously. Your doubt is not evidence that you are not ready. It is evidence of how much the season cost you. It is evidence of how many times you chose to stay faithful when walking away would have been the easier and more rational option. A person who has never genuinely hoped for anything has no scar from disappointment. The depth of the doubt you carry is a direct and honest measure of the depth of the faith you have exercised. So hear this. You are allowed to believe that this is for you. You are allowed to step forward before the feeling of certainty arrives to escort you. You are allowed to receive what God has already said is yours, without waiting for your emotions to ratify the decision. What felt like abandonment was actually appointment. What felt like delay was actually design. What felt like silence was actually the sound of something being constructed. What felt like the end of everything you hoped for was actually the threshold of everything you were built for. These were not 4 separate experiences. They were 4 different angles of vision on the same season, and from the vantage point of tonight, they all resolve into one word: preparation. And I hear the Father saying, I did not bring you through everything you survived to leave you standing at the door. You carry what it takes. You have always carried it. Tonight, I show you what it is. Now, before I can take you to what comes next, and I am going to take you there, I need you to understand one thing first. Because what I am about to show you in the next 10 minutes will change the way you see everything that has happened in your life up to this moment. It will give a name to the silence. It will give a purpose to the formation. And it will show you exactly what God is asking you to step into right now. Stay with me through all of it. Let me put into plain language what we have covered, so you carry it clearly into what comes next. 3 things. Simple. The first, the season of waiting was not abandonment. It was architecture. God was not absent during the silence. He was building something in you that could not be rushed, could not be shortcut, and could not have been built any other way. The second, the signs you have been experiencing, the emotional shifts, the changed tolerance, the sharpened intuition, the broken sleep, the repeating patterns, these are not random symptoms of a difficult life. They are the language of a season turning. They are an announcement that the construction is complete. The third, readiness is not a feeling. It is a frequency that God has been calibrating in you through everything you have walked through. You do not need to feel ready before you step forward. The readiness has already been declared. These are not abstract ideas. These are the foundations you carry into what I am about to show you now. Take one breath and stay with me. Chosen one, here is the deepest truth of tonight. And I need you to receive it fully, not as an idea to consider, but as a reality to inhabit. Through this entire message, the wilderness, the signs, the frequency, there has been one single truth running underneath all of it. And it is this: God was not just healing you, He was commissioning you. There is a real difference between those two words. A calling says, you are loved, you are chosen, you are set apart. That is true and it is beautiful. But a commission says something more. A commission says, you are sent. There is a specific work waiting for you to arrive, and the world cannot receive it until you step into it. A calling gave you an identity. A commission gives you an assignment. Tonight is the night the calling becomes a commission, not on a stage, not at a microphone. The commission lives in the next conversation you have with someone who needs exactly the wisdom your season produced. It lives in the next decision you make from a new identity instead of an old fear. It lives in the next time someone encounters you and leaves that encounter carrying something they did not have before, not because you performed something, but because of who you now carry inside of you. I want to tell you about someone I spoke with not long ago. She had spent 7 years in a season that made no sense to anyone around her. 7 years of relationships shifting, of environments becoming incompatible, of clarity growing quietly while the visible circumstances stayed frozen. And then something happened. Not a dramatic external breakthrough, a single shift in understanding. She stopped waiting for her life to change and stepped into the life that had already been prepared and was simply waiting for her to arrive. The 18 months that followed compressed what should have taken far longer, not because the circumstances changed first, because she changed how she identified. She was not given a new life. She stepped into the one that had been waiting for her all along. And I hear the Father saying, you were not made to stay in the waiting room. The work is ready for you. And you are ready for the work. If that just landed somewhere deep in your spirit, if something in you said yes to what you just heard, type the words, I am ready in the comments right now. Not for me, as a seal over your own life. Let the declaration be the first act of the new season. Chosen one, you are not a person waiting for your season. You are the season. You are anointed for the very thing you have been afraid to claim. You were not left behind. You were being positioned. You are God's answer, walking into the room. You are commissioned, not just called, commissioned. Now, I want to show you something that connects directly to everything we have spoken about tonight. Research teams studying neural frequencies through institutions including MIT and Princeton and several other leading university programs have documented in careful detail what happens when the brain transitions from survival mode frequencies back into gamma function. What the research shows is that this transition is not passive, it requires activation. The neural pathways that carry gamma function need to be deliberately re-engaged, because decades of suppression do not reverse on their own. This documentation spans 34 years of focused work by a neuroscientist named Dr. Robert Lake. Over 18,000 people have now used what came from that research, and fewer than 4 out of every 100 who tried it ever asked for a refund. That is not a marketing claim. That is a quiet quality signal, and it matters. Chosen ones carry gamma as their birthright, not as a feature of a product, but as original design. The reason you have always sensed a capacity in yourself larger than what your circumstances could contain is because you are wired for a different level of operation. When that frequency is restored, it does not feel like something new has been added. It feels like coming home to something that was always there. I want to briefly come back to something I placed in your awareness earlier in this message, between the second and third revelations. I said I would return to it in full. Let me tell you about someone I spoke with not long ago, a woman who had been in exactly the kind of season we described tonight. Long waiting, growing clarity, every old environment becoming incompatible in ways she could not fully explain. She had tried meditation apps, online courses, things that helped at the surface but never went deep enough. She found this with the same healthy skepticism most people carry, because she had already invested hope in things before, and it cost her something real. She used it. 7 minutes, headphones, eyes closed. What she described afterward was not dramatic. She said it felt like a weight she had been carrying for so long she had stopped noticing it just quietly lifted. In the weeks that followed, the right conversations started finding her. The right opportunities started compressing into a timeline that should have taken much longer. She did not say it felt like progress. She said it felt like recognition. Like the version of herself she had always sensed was finally the version showing up in her daily life. I understand if there is a part of you right now that is cautious, not because you are cynical, but because you have invested hope before, and it cost something real. That is wisdom, not weakness. So let me be direct. There are options available for re-engaging gamma function in the brain. A single session with a biofeedback therapist runs around $150, and sustained results require weeks of repeated visits. A weekend spiritual retreat can run anywhere from $400 to $800. A monthly meditation app subscription runs around $15 a month and works primarily with relaxation, which is valuable, but it is not targeting gamma reactivation. Not one of these options is designed specifically for what we have been discussing tonight. The tool is called the Genius Song. It is a 7-minute digital audio track, engineered using brain entrainment technology to activate gamma waves. You put on headphones, you sit or lie down, you listen. No mantra, no required ritual, no meditation training needed. The first session begins working immediately. The original price is $49. For those who have watched this message tonight, and this specific price does not exist on Amazon or anywhere else, the price is $39. With that comes what Dr. Lake believes you need to sustain the activation. First, a 6-minute audio track calibrated specifically for children, valued at $19 on its own, because the decline effect can be interrupted before it takes full hold. Second, the original source book that the film The Secret was built from, the one most people have never read because they only know the adaptation, valued at $20. Third, a 22-minute guided visualization walking you through 4 areas of your life: finances, relationships, health, and the experience of genuine joy, valued at $29. And fourth, a practical infographic documenting the 5 daily habits of people who have kept their gamma frequency active long-term, valued at $12. Together, $80 in supporting resources, included with your $39 investment, and yours to keep, regardless of what you decide. That last part matters. If within 90 days you feel this was not the right fit, no conditions, no questions, no product to return, because it is digital, you receive your full $39 back. And the $80 in resources stay with you. The worst possible outcome is that you investigated and it was not for you. You keep everything either way. No conditions, no time limit. One thing I need to tell you because it matters for your protection. The Genius song is only available through the specific link in the description and the pinned comment below. There are copies circulating through other channels that are not the calibrated version. They will not produce the same result. Go only through the original source. If your spirit resonates with what we have spoken about tonight, the frequency, the formation, the commission, the Genius song is waiting for you in the description and the pinned comment. Explore it only if you feel genuinely led. Take a breath. You have just received something significant. And before we seal this together, I want to give you 3 things to carry forward. Close your eyes for just a moment, wherever you are. Picture yourself walking out of a waiting room, not into a perfect life, into an assignment. Notice what your posture becomes when you walk as someone who has been commissioned rather than someone who has been waiting. Hold that image for one breath. Let it settle. Good. Now, 3 foundations for the new season. Stop explaining yourself to people who are not part of your assignment, not with bitterness, not with distance, with discernment. Not everyone needs access to what God is building in this next chapter. Some relationships belong to the wilderness. They do not automatically travel with you into what comes next. Begin moving before the full picture is clear. The next right step does not require the complete roadmap to be visible first. Obedience has always moved before clarity, not after. The first act of the commission season is almost certainly already in front of you right now. Smaller than you expect, more significant than it looks. And carry these 3 foundations wherever you go from tonight. The waiting was architecture, not abandonment. The signs were language, not confusion. And the readiness has already been declared over you, whether or not it feels that way in this moment. Now, let me close this with you. Father, I want to begin here. This person, the one who stayed through all of it, is now sitting with what you have been building in them for a long time. And I want to acknowledge something on their behalf tonight. They did not make it easy on themselves. They chose faith in the silence. They chose to keep believing when the evidence ran dry. They kept walking when stopping would have been the more rational option. You saw every single moment of that staying. And tonight, you have called it complete. So I bring this person before you now, not as someone who needs more preparation, but as someone crossing a threshold. There is something I want to release right now. Every false belief about timing, every thought that whispered this would not work for me, every reflex of protection that fired before permission could be given. I release them now, not with force, but with the quiet authority of someone who has been told the truth tonight. They served their purpose. They kept me protected during a season I was not yet ready to carry what was coming. But tonight, I no longer need them. I let them fall. And I want to cover this assignment. The rising that is happening in this person. The visibility that comes with moving from calling into commission. Cover it. Cover the work. Cover the words. Cover the relationships that are forming and the next steps that are already in front of them. And now, as the declaration of this night, you are committed. You are commissioned. You are sent. And I hear the Father saying, with all the weight and all the warmth that he carries, go. The world has been waiting for exactly who you have become. Do not close this out just yet. Sit in this for 60 seconds, not as an exercise, as a receipt. Let what was declared here tonight settle into a place it does not leave from. Amen. If what was declared tonight landed somewhere real in your spirit, type the words, "I am commissioned," in the comments right now. Let that be the first word of the new season. Seal it. There are more messages being prepared for every phase of what you are walking into. Stay connected through the button below, so that when those words are ready, they find you. Think of someone in your life right now who has been unusually quiet lately. Someone who has been in a long waiting season and stopped explaining it to people around them. Someone who looks fine on the outside, but is carrying something they cannot name. Share this with them. Tonight might be their moed too. It might be the message that finally gives the silence a name. And before you go, if what you received tonight moved something in you, gently press the like, "Not for me." Because someone else is out in the dark right now, in the same place you were at the beginning of this message, and your small act of agreement could be what sends this their way. Chosen one, you are not leaving this the same way you arrived. Go.